the corruption of money leads to the corruption of just about everything that money touches. Corruption, it's got an etymological link to the word rupture, right? If our economic blood does not function, then eventually we will suffer from institutional failure. And that's what we have in the world today. So big food, big ag, big pharma, these are all just symptoms of corrupt money. So you get a destruction of quantity and quality through the printing of money. And this infects every market for every good and every service in the world. And so it's through this debasement of money that you do get this cascading consequence of a debasement of food. I have had kind of a quote-unquote back-of-the-house career. I was a CFO for these tech companies. But when I started publishing written works, people would invite me on their podcasts to talk about it, and those podcasts would become popular. So I discovered that I had this gift to talk about things that I'm passionate about in a way that people could grasp the ideas better. And so people were asking me for more and more of that. I kept doing it. And by late 2020, launched the podcast. Now, more recently, in the past 4+ years, has been podcast hosting and making podcast appearances, which I still do. I also invest in Bitcoin businesses. I look forward to building Bitcoin businesses in the future. So any way that I can support the growth of the network, that is what I'm dedicating my life to. My name is Robert Breedlove. I'm a Bitcoiner and the host of the What is Money show, and this is my animal-based story.
This is a good place to ask, what is Bitcoin?
I think it's more useful to help people become aware of the problem before you introduce Bitcoin as the solution. Sound money has been the norm of human history, and only in these little interregnum periods have we seen governments become involved and print money and debase money and hyperinflate money. Those experiments have been run and they failed. And they always end the same way. Once you start printing money, people become addicted to it. They even call it a stimulant. They need to stimulate the economy by printing money. They still use this language today. And surprise, surprise, if you just keep taking stimulants and you don't get any actual economic nutrition, well, then eventually the organism suffers and dies. I think we're rediscovering ancestral diets in the information age, but we're also rediscovering ancestral money, if you will. I mean, wherever humans have had access to a form of savings that is more resistant to debasement than another, they will choose that over time. And this is not a subjective thing. This is very much like natural selection. If I choose gold and you choose silver, well, then I'm going to hold more purchasing power over time than you are. And eventually you're going to go out of business relative to me. And so eventually gold outcompetes silver. There are objective properties that make one money better than another. And so coming to understand why gold was the most superior form of money is a very useful framing, probably the most useful framing for understanding why Bitcoin is the most superior form of money imaginable. Across all those properties of money that I often enumerate, divisibility, durability, recognizability, portability, scarcity. Like gold excelled all the other monetary metals in terms of those 5 properties. Bitcoin effectively perfects them. For the first time in human history, have this rules in the game of money that no one can corrupt or change or manipulate. Bitcoin is totally uncounterfeitable. There's a fixed supply of 21 million. It's pure digital information, so you can move it at the speed of light, and you can secure it like any other piece of information, right? To secure Bitcoin is to just keep a secret. So although it's this new technology, it's just the best implementation of this ancient idea of sound money. There was this game I played growing up called Diablo 2. This was such an interesting game because although they had money in the game, it was basically so abundant, so it wasn't very useful for trade. People started to quote prices in terms of this. It's called the Stone of Jordan Ring. They call them SOJs. This thing became like an emergent digital currency. I basically started doing more of the trading and less of the dungeon slaying. Just intuitively learned to buy low, sell high, and you just accumulate wealth in the game. Then eBay becomes popular, and so all that in-game wealth I had accumulated suddenly became real money. You know, and I'm doing air quotes here with real because it was US dollars. US dollars are not real money, which I know now, but I didn't know at the time. I thought it was real money. And so at that point, I had this subtle epiphany that was like, hey, something weird is happening here. You know, there's people playing this video game, which is like not the real world. Yet now people are spending real money to acquire things in this not real world. And so I couldn't even articulate it at the time, but my intuition that I fortunately followed was that there's something at the nexus of the internet, digital technology, and money. There's something interesting there. Pay attention to that. Follow that. I graduated with a master's degree at 23, so probably at the age of 2021, I read the book The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is the explanation of how the U.S. got a central bank. It discusses the nature and history of money and the nature and history of central banking more broadly. The realization for me from that book was that central banking is the most evil thing in the world. Also, the realization was that there was nothing that could be done about it. It's just like, this is the way the world is, so suck it up and get back to work. And years later, when I read Saifedean's book, The Bitcoin Standard, in 2018, for me, it was the last piece. That digital money confluence thing that I had an early intuition about from playing Diablo 2, and then this central banking thing that I discovered in my early 20s that is like the most evil institution in the world. Bitcoin is that thing that I intuited a long time ago that solves the central banking thing and that actually redeems the human race from all of these downstream effects that we've talked about, like big pharma, big food, military industrial complex, like the list goes on and on and on. After reading that book, within 6 months, I got my first tattoo, which is my Bitcoin logo here. It became my mission. When I got the tattoo, I was like, I'm all in on this thing. I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to make this, to help this thing any way that I can. People often joke, Bitcoin doesn't need anyone, but it serves everyone. That is what encourages everyone that gets into it to, evangelize is what a lot of people would use. To evangelize an absolutely neutral protocol, right? So it's not like campaigning for Bitcoin gives you any asymmetric advantage, but it's also moving people onto this permanently level playing field that cannot be corrupted. We go back to the word corruption, right? Two-tiered rule sets. Well, what is Bitcoin? It's a universally one-tiered rule set. So my contribution has evolved, right? I had a Twitter following of 300 people, I think, when I first got into Bitcoin. So one of the initial ways I could reach out was to just tweet. Hey, I read this. Hey, have you thought about this? Just tweeting about nature and history of money, how private property works, economics, human psychology, game theory, all these different interdisciplinary areas that money touches. I wasn't super comfortable with it, but Bitcoin gave me this motivation. It's like, hey, just tweet, educate. And so that started to spiral up, and then more and more people were engaging with what I had to say, more and more followers. I was reading voraciously, and then I started writing about what I had learned. I discovered that I had this gift to talk about things that I'm passionate about in a way that people could grasp the ideas better. And so people were asking me for more and more of that. I kept doing it, and by late 2020, launched the podcast.
But this is the year when you kind of got it viscerally.
And was very fortunate to have Michael Saylor as my first guest, so that was a big success. Said it was tweeting and writing early on. Now, more recently, in the past 4+ years, it's been podcast hosting and making podcast appearances, which I still do.
What is money?
Oh, as you know, that's my favorite question.
In any financial crisis, what can somebody do with their money strategy to come out the other side better than they went in?
Yeah, this is a kind of a complicated question because one of the things that money is, I talk about this a lot on the show, is an insurance policy on uncertainty.
For better or worse, here in the United States, we're pretty insulated from what the problem is. For the past few generations at least, we have functional banking systems, credit that works, we have depository institutions that work, we haven't had a hyperinflation. So like the financial system on a comparative basis to the rest of the world is actually really good here. It's the best of the worst, let's say. So I wanted to spark people's curiosity. It occurred to me that, well, the first question is, what is Bitcoin? Well, the answer is Bitcoin is money. Then the natural extension of the question becomes, what is money? This had given me a mission, I guess. I had found the mission that I wanted to participate in. And I felt like it almost had been set up in life for, it's kind of like a divine path, or however you want to look at it. Just the idiosyncratic sequence of events in my own life had led me to this point, to be willing and able to understand this thing early. And I just wanted to support its success any way I could. Something you come to going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, that the corruption of money leads to the corruption of just about everything that money touches. I think food is just one microcosm of the larger macrocosmic effect of corrupt money, that it actually does every industry the same way. As I've gotten older and realized that I'm not invincible, you start to have little health things like the gut inflammation and the hip tweak and all these things. You start to become more of an active participant, almost like your own physician. I had like this gut inflammation issue off and on throughout the years. That's what led me into keto, carnivore, and all that. Even today, if I eat the wrong thing and my gut gets irritated, I get in a bad mood, I'm down. So I have to be very keenly aware of like how I'm feeling and make sure that I'm doing the things that make me feel good. Beef and organs work the best for me. When it comes to organs, I will say that I like liver. I don't want to say I love liver, I like it. Other organs, all right, a lot of them taste funny. What I've done personally is like, heart and soil is just a godsend on this front, because you can take the capsules. I already take a bunch of capsules every day, so I just mix some capsules into my supplement flow, and then I can get all the benefits of those organs without having to figure out how to prepare them in a way that's not disgusting. I eat beef a lot. It's just something about it. It's so satiating in a way that nothing else is. I guess it's the nutrient density. When I eat it, I feel so deeply satisfied, like in my core, in a way that no other food does that for me. Every good and service that we produce, obviously money touches that at some point. And this is why money and the corruption of money is such a fundamental phenomenon to discuss. The metaphor that I think is useful is, if the blood does not function, then eventually you suffer from organ failure, right? If our economic blood does not function, then eventually we will suffer from institutional failure. And that's what we have in the world today. So big food, big ag, big pharma, these are all just symptoms of corrupt money, in my estimation. There's also a term called shrinkflation. Google shrinkflation Snickers bar, for instance. It'll show you the Snickers bar from, 1990, right? It would say it was a 6-inch long Snickers bar and cost 69 cents. I'm making numbers up here. I'm not exactly sure what it was. 2010 Snickers bar, that's like 4 inches long, and it costs $1.79. So the quality, and in this case, the size of the bar has definitely gone down. Probably the quality too. It's probably more high fructose corn syrup, less whatever the quality comparative of that is, and the price has gone up. So you get a destruction of quantity and quality through the printing of money. And this infects every market for every good and every service in the world. This is the mantra in Bitcoin, by the way. Fix the money, fix the world. It's not because we're a bunch of money nerds and we want the money to work better and that'll just be cool because we all like to be rich. It's like, no, the broken money is breaking everything. Right? There's a reason all these seed oils and high fructose corn syrup and fake pharmaceuticals and all this shit that is ruining us and disconnecting us from where we come from. And all of these things are related to a greater or lesser extent to the broken incentives inherent to broken money. One of the things that I've realized on this journey is I kind of switched my internal perspective from being a passive observer of history to trying to be more of an active participant in history. Like, if I can encourage more people to take radical responsibility for themselves and for being an imitation-worthy person for their loved ones, to whatever extent I can help people become more active participants in history, less of just passive receptacles of whatever the top-down narrative is, obedient. It's like, we just need to do the right thing. And if it's not the right thing in your heart, then don't do it, right? And that's what history's shown us over the past 4 years, is giving you that crystal clear example of why you have to do what is right. Not what is being forced upon you, not what is the path of least resistance, but what is right. That's what makes us human. The ticker for Bitcoin is BTC. If you don't like what you see in the world, then I suggest you BTC. Be the change you wish to see in the world. If I can help people come to that epiphany that it is the human superpower that you are highly programmable, And if you don't embrace that superpower and use it towards accomplishing the things that you deem to be right in the world, then someone else is probably going to use you towards what they deem to be right in the world. Bitcoin is this thing that radically empowers the individual. I hope that people will take that empowerment and take their own programmability very seriously and start building the world that they wish to see. But you need to get out into the world and actually participate and do something. Move the world forward in a way that you would like to see it move forward. Be the change.